I am so thrilled tonight to be able to welcome special guests to share their stories with us. I actually, in sort of it feels very Jewish that I have no idea how we got connected, Nadav. I couldn't begin to tell you, but somehow the world worked in a way that landed Nadav in my office a few months ago, and I was really so thrilled to meet him and to hear his story and the work that he's doing as the CEO of an organization called Yotzim that supports people leaving ultra-Orthodox community in Israel. And so he is here tonight with Shifra, who is a volunteer from Yotzim L'Shinui, and we're thrilled to welcome them up to the Bima. They're going to share their story and the work that is so important that they're doing in our world, specifically in Israel. Go ahead.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for welcoming me into your special community here tonight. This has been a really unique service for me, and I really enjoyed it. This is beautiful. Thank you. My name is Shifra Katz. I'm 30 years old. Today, I've lived in Tel Aviv for about 5 years. In my spare time, I like to dance and surf, and I've traveled the world. I graduated from a top law school in Israel. And I served for many years in the very prestigious IDF spokesperson's unit. I became an officer, and I was recently promoted to major. Following the October 7th attack, for about 15 months, I worked really closely with top military officials to fight for our right to live with security and dignity in Israel and help bring the hostages home. I know this may sound fairly typical for an Israeli, but had you told 8-year-old Shifra that I would have achieved half of these things, I probably would have thought you were delusional. I grew up in a Haredi, ultra-Orthodox neighborhood in Jerusalem. Education was tailored very clearly. Men were provided with little to no secular education, and women were given enough of an education to put them on a track to qualify for vocational training so they could become both breadwinners and homemakers and support their husbands in their learning. Definitely the most defining aspect of being Haredi is adhering to very strict community standards. From a young age, I struggled to accept the system's authority. I was always pushing boundaries, I was asking questions, my hair was messy, my skirts were too long, and I was taught that self-expression came with limits. I loved to dance, and when I was 12, my parents let me know that becoming a ballerina wasn't an option, dancing was immodest. And it was a moment in which I really understood that there were certain dreams my community wouldn't allow me to pursue. 16 is a time when every Israeli teenager is starting their process of placement testing for the IDF, but the Haredi schools take this time to explain to the students how to skirt this obligation. Ironically, the fact that my school wasn't even willing to have a conversation about why they didn't want us to draft made me feel obligated to learn more about this topic. It made me question why the path they were setting out was so obvious. And it set me on a journey of exploration that changed my life. I grew up in a Jerusalem that was bloodied by the massive terror attacks of the Second Intifada. Even Haredi children understand in that context that soldiers and policemen represent safety and security. When the possibility of drafting became real, I knew I couldn't shake my sense of personal responsibility. It seemed unreasonable that given the opportunity to join the ranks of the Guardians of Israel, I would walk away without contributing my part. And so without really understanding where this would take me, I decided I would draft to the IDF. Both my school and my parents actively objected to this decision. My father demanded that I get an exemption and put a lot of pressure on me to do so. I later found out that he also hid the letters I was receiving from the military, summoning me to the evaluation process for units, which I liked the opportunity to serve in. I don't judge him for this. It's really important to understand when a guy chooses to leave yeshiva and draft to the military, it becomes a major source of grief for the family. But a woman wanting to draft it, it really was unheard of. There wasn't even a response in place. One morning in the summer before 12th grade, I woke up early to go for some Army evaluations. They had called me, so I knew when and where I needed to go. And my parents, when they figured out where I was going, we had a very singular event. It is, I think, the only time I can ever remember my father yelling at me. And in a very emotional exchange, he let me know that under no circumstances would I be drafting to the military. And there's something fantastic about being 17 and rebellious, and I stormed out of the house. But I got to the bus stop, and I sat on the bench, and I just felt like my world was falling apart. Can you imagine being 17? I'm on the cusp of becoming an adult, and in that moment, I realized that the first step I want to take as an adult could tear me away from my community. I could lose my family. And as I sat there with like tears streaming down my face, I knew this was the most important decision of my life, not just because of the significance of serving in the Army, but I felt it would define who I was. Was I going to be a person who followed what I knew in my heart was right, or would I let society decide for me? And so I got on the bus and I took those tests. 6 months after that screaming match, my father sat me down. When he realized that this was a real choice and I wasn't going to change my mind, he wanted us to talk about what it would mean. This was his way of letting me know that even as I was choosing to do something outside of the norm, he wanted me to remain part of our family. My parents are an exception to a very painful rule. So many other young adults who choose what I was able to choose are pushed outside of their family and are left without any support. While for my parents, this choice was obvious, I know it wasn't an easy one, and it had its costs for them as well. My Army service was the first time I had real contact with secular Jews, or even just with Jews who had a more liberal outlook on Judaism. And I felt very alone. The people I served with couldn't relate to my background, and on the other hand, at home, no one really understood what I was experiencing. Unlike so many of my peers, I didn't know anyone who had been in the Army, and I didn't have anyone who could give me guidance through my challenges, whether they were mundane or monumental. But despite feeling out of place, or maybe because of it, I became a bridge between two worlds. My experiences and perspective gave my family and friends a window into the IDF in general, Israeli society, which they simply wouldn't have had otherwise. And I often joke that I had signed up to be a military spokesperson, but I didn't realize I would also be a spokesperson for the religious world within the military. But that's what happened. I helped commanders understand the unique nature of the Haredi community, and my background also set me up for my first position in the IDF spokesperson's unit, building much-needed relationships with the Haredi press. When I completed my service, I chose to dedicate a year to studying Torah, defying norms again. Where I grew up, women weren't really given access to studying Talmud, and it felt that it was something that was really important to me. For me, learning Gemara wasn't just about obtaining knowledge, even though I learned a lot, and I met incredible women who were shaping the way in which people engage with Torah. It was a lot about claiming my right to choose how I connect to my own heritage. Feminism for me isn't just about gender equality. It's about the ability to make my own decisions and have ownership over my life. Just 13 years ago, people like me who wanted to leave the Haredi system had to navigate this world alone. When we failed, we lost out, maybe we got stuck, but Israeli society was really paying the price. I fought really hard to follow my dreams. And today I've achieved things I didn't even know I could dream of. I'm proud of the path I've taken. But thanks to the work of Out for Change, young people today don't have to struggle alone. The organization gives them a voice and much needed guidance. I know now more than ever that choosing to serve wasn't just about me. It It was about taking an active role in the future of the Jewish people. At 17, I could never have imagined how profoundly this choice would shape the rest of my life. But today, I really can't imagine it any other way. When the atrocities of October 7th happened, I had a job I was uniquely prepared for. One I stepped into without hesitation, continuing to do my part in the role I had chosen for myself. I believe that supporting the integration of Yotzim into Israeli society is one of the most pressing matters with regards to the future of the stability of the State of Israel. I'm proud to be an ambassador of that change. And before I give the stage to Nadav, our fearless CEO, who's spearheading really important activity of this organization, I do want to mention that it has been 532 days since the horrific attack on October 7th. There are still 59 people being held hostage by Hamas in Gaza today. We need every person we can get to do their part to bring them home. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank you and your community for continued support in these difficult times. May we have only b'sorot tovot. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, and thank you very much for having us. It's my first time in non-Orthodox service, and it's amazing. And I really understand this evening is going to be a meaningful event in my journey, so thank you. My name is Nadav Rosenblatt, and I live in Kfar Adumim. It's a small place near Jerusalem. And I have the honor to be part of one of the most important issues in Israel today, helping young men and women who want to integrate from the ultra-Orthodox community into the Israeli society. My motivation comes from my mother's story, who grew up in Bnei Brak, the largest ultra-Orthodox city in Israel. A few years ago, I asked my mother about her biggest regret. She told me a story that I never knew before, that at the age of 18, she wanted to join the army, like Shifra did. But my grandfather told her that if she going to do this, she would no longer be part of the family. My mother, knowing she had no help outside, gave up on her dream. As a child, seeing the challenges my mother faced just because she was different from her family made me decide to do everything I could so other young people wouldn't have to suffer like my mother did. Today, with every big achievement that making out for change, the first call I do is to my mother to say, "Mommy, this is for you." Let me tell a little bit about ultra-Orthodox community in Israel because it's a little bit different from the community here in the state. The ultra-Orthodox community in Israel does not see themselves as part of the Zionist society. They don't serve in the army. They have their own school system without general subjects like math, English, and science, and the men don't take part in the workforce. The ultra-Orthodox community is growing very fast in Israel, almost twice as fast as everyone else. Today, one in 4 first-grade students in Israel is an ultra-Orthodox. And in more 25 years from now, 1/3 of Israel's population will be ultra-Orthodox. When you combine this fast growing with their separate lifestyle, you can see this creates a big challenge for Israel's future. The Israel government understood this 15 years ago and decided to spend a lot of money on programs to help ultra-Orthodox people join the army and get jobs. Jewish Philanthropics Foundation also helped with this important mission. But here's the strange part. All of these programs are only open for people who stay ultra-Orthodox. In other words, if you grew up in ultra-Orthodox but decided to change your lifestyle, you can't get any support from the government, even though you probably need help even more than those who stay ultra-Orthodox, because you are probably cut off from family and community support. Today, more and more people are living in the ultra-Orthodox community. 1 on every 7 ultra-Orthodox people will decide to change their lifestyle and be part of the Zionist dream. They are brave men and women who are willing to pay a heavy price just to take part in Israel society. These people are a crucial resource for Israel society, which needs more soldiers and taxpayers. We don't have any hidden agenda. We only help people who have already decided to leave. And of course, we help everyone, no matter what they choose. They can be modern, Orthodox, Reform, Conservative, or secular. We really don't care. What matters to us is that they reach their full potential. The main winner from our work is the State of Israel, but sadly, because of politics, the government does not support us, so we need all the partners and help we can get. The recent war shows more than ever how much we are contributing to Israel's security. Then 30 former ultra-Orthodox soldiers were killed while defending all of us. People who weren't raised to serve in the army, like Shifra and like my mother, but who bravely decided to go against what they had been told and join anyway. It hurts to know that if they hadn't died, they would have had to fight for their basic rights later in life. Like the pioneer who left the shtetl in Europe to build Israel in the last century, we are doing the same thing right now. These days, we are thinking about Israel's future and asking ourselves what kind of Israel we want to see. I believe that anyone who wants to see stronger, more Israel with better community values should join and support our vision. Thank you so much, and have Shabbat Shalom. Toda rabba.